Everybody think has lunch and does have a seat, so we can start. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, at first, I have to apologize for Felicitas Medved, the president of ELF, who fell on Wednesday morning, broke her arm, and is actually in the hospital around the corner. But so I have to do, and I have the great pleasure and honor to welcome you. And my name is Jürgen Martens. I'm the vice president of ELF, and we heartily welcome you to this Dahrendorf Roundtable. A recipe for liberal success, creating a European digital single market. This event is the fourth in a series of ELF events called Innovation Through Digitalization. The focus of the series is how European digitalization and digital entrepreneurship can strengthen the European economy, building on the ideas which came about during the four events. ELF plans to launch a set of policy recommendations on how to promote digital growth. And the topic of the party congress, reclaiming liberalism, and one way to do this is to refocus our attention on core topics. With the appointment of Commissioner Ansip, it has become clear that the creation of an European digital market, digital single market, will continue to be a key liberal topic. At that place, I have especially to thank AT&T, which has supported this series of events by ELF. And according to the European Commission's website, too many barriers still block the free flow of online services and, for instance, entertainment across national borders. And creating a connected digital single market is one of the 10 main priorities from EC President Jean-Claude Juncker. And so we have a very interesting and actual subject to discuss, and I'd like to welcome the panelists from the left, Vidana Gujic, president of LIMEC, Kaja Kallas, member of the European Parliament and member of the Committee of Industry, Research and Energy, and Tom Nuttall, from The Economist, journalist, and he is based in Brussels. And to my side, the former Spain, the former digital champion of Spain, Alicia Richard. So welcome again, and so we can start with a 5 minute statement of each panelist, I think. So.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I don't know how many of you are based in Brussels. I'm based in Brussels. And it's very hard to go anywhere in Brussels these days without hearing about something called the digital agenda. And to my ears, the digital agenda often sounds a bit like a superhero's digital agenda man who's going to come and save us all from the evils of unemployment and slow growth with his trusty sidekicks, Jean-Claude Juncker and Mr. Ansip. But Mr. Digital Agenda Man faces some serious hurdles, some supervillains, you could possibly describe them as. One of these is underinvestment. And of course, this week on Wednesday, Mr. Juncker will be unveiling his 300 billion investment plan, and we expect digital elements to play a major role in that. Another of the supervillains that Digital Agenda Man is up against is outdated thinking, or fragmented thinking. We hear a lot about outdated regulatory systems, fragmented markets, the inability of small firms to get online and deal with Europe as if it were a single market. So I think one of the things I'll be looking to the panelists to address today is whether Digital Agenda Man and his sidekicks are powerful enough to overcome these formidable obstacles. Another thing I'll be interested to ask them is whether the grand promises that we hear so much about, I think Mr. Juncker promised or suggested that over the course of this Commission's mandate, if we're able to complete the digital single market, we might be looking at 250 billion euros worth of value being created and hundreds of thousands of jobs. I don't think anyone would disagree that we desperately need jobs and growth in the European Union. Is there a danger, though, that perhaps we're overselling the digital agenda in the way that we have oversold so much before? So just before turning over to our panel, I'll explain the format. I think each of them are going to give a 10-minute presentation or so. We'll then turn it over to the audience, have a Q&A probably for about half an hour. And then we'll come back and each of the panelists will sum up for about 5 minutes. We are on the record here, no Chatham House rules, and the event is being filmed. You can see the camera at the back. I don't think it's live, but I think it's going to be posted on YouTube at some point. And I have been asked to point out that if you are going to be live tweeting this, which would seem appropriate, you ought to use the hashtag ELFevent. And so I will now turn it over to the panel, beginning with Vedrana.
Thank you. I would like to welcome you all here on behalf of LIMEC, the European Liberal Youth. And in my introduction, I will speak from the youth perspective on digital single market and the importance it has for the development of both our economy and our societies. Let me start first with the most commonly repeated phrase nowadays: if it's not on Facebook, it didn't happen, or if it's not online, it didn't happen. We are witnessing today ALDE Congress, which is highly tweeted, Facebook posted, tagged, hashtagged. We are all over the internet the whole weekend. Today, life is actually the thing that happens online. If it's not alienating us, it's connecting us. Internet is actually connecting us, and to be connected, you need to be reached, and to need to be reached, you need to have access. Which brings us to problem number one for the youth in Europe, and that is the internet access. 25 years ago, the World Wide Web is invented, and still 100 million Europeans have never visited the internet. Is it something we should worry about, or is it actually a potential for growth? It is important for us to have access to the internet because on the internet we have everything. We have information, we have education, we have our banking and other services, we have retail. So advancing the quality and of the internet and the access to internet is actually advancing the quality of our lives and our societies. It is also a huge potential for economic growth. App economy and ICT sector is the fastest growing sector in Europe today. It created 800,000 jobs in Europe last year, and it's only it's the fact that the US is leading the race on the internet, but we shouldn't be discouraged because we have our own capacities in Europe, like Skype, Spotify, Rovio, SwiftKey. It's the market that is growing every day, especially the app economy. And from the youth perspective, actually, the youth is the ones that are leading the way. Young people are the ones who are creating these applications, who are developing new ICT sector and these new industries. So what is important for us is to deregulate it, to give access to internet all over Europe with measures like high-speed broadband all over Europe, scrapping the roaming charges. If it's so important for us to create the energy union, it should be also same priority to create a digital union in Europe. We should scrap the obstacles and regulations for development because there is a huge potential to fight not only unemployment as such, but specifically youth unemployment. As I said, that youth is actually the leading generation in this sector. The third priority that we want to address as youth is the security on the internet. When we are developing the market, we should also take care of our data protection, safety and security, and trustworthiness of the internet, because our digital life should be should have the same safety as our real life. How we should do it? We should all start to think digitally. We should have a digital mindset. We should have concrete policies. And that's why we strongly supported Neelie Kroes, our commissioner, in all of her achievements that she did in her last mandate. And I think it is like the basis that should not be moved. Like we should only move from that basis up in the next mandate of the European Commission. And we have the money, we have structural funds, we have European budget that can invest in the development of digital market. We shouldn't give priorities to common agricultural policy. We should scrap it. We should invest into the development of the digital economy and put the money there. Thank you.
Thank you, Vedrona. Moving to Ms. Kaja Kallas.
Thank you. I will start from very far, actually. I came here yesterday by a plane, and it was a long journey, so I had a chance to read a book. And I read a book totally about a different thing, but I saw the parallel, and I wanted to share the story with you. In 1583, William Lee, who graduated from Cambridge University to become a priest, a local priest, came from the university, and then there was a ruling from the Elizabeth I that everybody should wear the knitted cap, but they were handmade. So he became obsessed to make it mechanical, or invent this type of a tool where knitters are not needed, but it's mechanized. And in 1589, he actually made this machine. So he wanted to get the patent for this. And he knew a member of parliament who actually brought or made the connection with the Queen. So the Queen came to see this machine. And this person, the William Lee, asked whether I can get the patent for this. And Elizabeth I said that no way, because this will put all the knitters out of work. This is actually the same thing currently. When we see discussions in the European Parliament regarding the digital agenda, then most of the people see it as a threat. But in order to develop, we need some kind of creative destruction. So that in order to new things come, we need to destroy the old things. And if we have a fear to let go of the old things, then we can't have innovation, we can't have new things. So coming to this day, then, for example, if we have Google cars, then all the taxi drivers will be put out of work. And then the politicians will say that, oh, we can't afford people getting out of work. But the thing is that if they get out of work, then there's new kind of market that they can enter into. So there's a big difference between the Europe and United States. In United States, people see digitalization as opportunity, and also I come from Estonia, so we are very much digitalized. And we are very proud of it, and we see it as an opportunity. So if we have discussions in the European Parliament, and we say and explain our examples, for example, we have the e-medicine, that all the medical records are online, and also prescriptions. For example, if I'm sick at home, then I just call my doctor, and she will write the prescription, and then somebody else can get it from the pharmacy, wherever I am. So this is really, really convenient for the people. But if I explain it in the European Parliament, then most people go like, oh, you go to the most dangerous files. You go to the medicine. You have to protect that data. But at the same time, actually, when you have the medical files on the paper, for example, the Schumacher case, somebody just stole the files on the paper. So that's not secure either. And if you have it on a digitalized form, then you can see who stole it, or when stole it, or which computer. So I think the main obstacle for all the digitalized services come to place is the fear that the people have regarding this. So how to overcome this fear is of course a big thing. Other example that I wanted to bring from Estonia is that we have 89% of our taxes are filed electronically. I think we are the only country in the world where people actually compete how fast you file your taxes. So it's like a national, when the date opens that you can actually file the taxes, then, oh, I did it in 3 minutes. No, I did 2:55. But it's so convenient and it saves time. So if we come to the efficiency, then it's really efficient. We have digital signature, which saves people a week work of annually, a week time to do something else. So if you have a chance to do something else, then of course you can also sleep. What happened also, what I read from the book yesterday, what happened when the machines came in one other area, then people just slept more. They didn't do more work, but this is another topic. So I think 2 things. One is to overcome the fears to actually get the agenda moving, because it is estimated that 4% of GDP raise would be then would become out of this digital agenda. And the other thing is, of course, investments, and what also a previous speaker talked about. So if we don't have investments to the infrastructure, then we can't have services on the infrastructure. So this is the thing. And if we talk about the digital single market, then who makes the investment? Either it's the European Union or it's the member states, or how to bring it to the member states that actually cross-border is convenient for everybody, and would everybody would benefit from this. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Alicia.
Thank you. Thank you all for your kind invitation to this forum. I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to start to say that we have to say that we are very happy with the new position of the Vice President for the Digital Single Market, with the aim of making Europe a significant leader and to provide the tools to succeed in a global and digital economy and society. We have to be very happy as well, because the President of this Digital Single Market is a former Estonian Prime Minister, Andrus Ansip. He has been assigned to a broad mandate to steer and to coordinate the work of several commissioners. The nomination of Andrus puts a spotlight on the Estonian vision of what he has of a digital Europe. He has been already at forefront of a digital transformation of his country, as Kaja has started to say. Today, Estonia excels in areas like e-government, so in the speed to pay taxes, as she mentioned, and in safe and security private and public digital solutions, and we take cybersecurity and data protection very seriously. And Estonia has accomplished this with liberal economic policies, so enhancing capital formation and using the digital government systems to streamline regulation. The President Jean-Claude Juncker understands very good these priorities, and he has recently said that he wants to tear down the regulatory walls and finally move from 20 national markets to a single digital market. So, which is the main difficulty that we have in Europe to create this digital single market? I think that we have already mentioned it, but we have to remove these regulatory barriers, right? Startups could start making businesses, and they could have a market that is larger than in the US, and where technology companies have the abilities to achieve scale before they could expand internationally. Of course, there will be resistance, as the current fragmented regime has created very convenient and well-protected comfort zones for some players. The old ways of doing things need to face competition that forces them to innovate. Uber, for example, is shaking up the taxi market for the good, by the way. It offers riders convenience and cheaper fares. So it is understandable that the incumbent taxi industry is not happy at all. So what do we need in summary, and to wrap up the conversation that we have all arise, all the topics that we have arise? So the first thing would be to remove obstacles. The second point would be to tackle fragmentation. This will give European entrepreneurs the incentive, and big companies the incentive to invest and the ability to achieve global scale at greater speed. And this is what we really miss in Europe. The third point, very important as well, would be to align technical standards and interoperability. It doesn't make sense to have your digital life in Windows or Android and Google stuff. I mean, it doesn't make any sense today. The fifth point would be political determination and strong leadership. I like it very much, the former European Commissioner for Digital Agenda, Neelie Kroes, because she had the courage to take and promote new ideas. And I really hope that this new commissioner will have the chance to promote and be quite rebel, let's say it in this way. Another point that really needs a serious consideration is the labor market. The labor market, it's quite stuck in Europe, and we're still having a high unemployment rate. And it's true that in all the Europeans, we have the right skills, we are able to build new products, new services, and new business. But what is equally important is make sure that employees can repurpose their skills, training, and expertise in new firms and new industries and new sectors to get this flexibility that I really think that our market needs. So digital entrepreneurship, it's central to get Europeans back to work. And of course, internet is making it easier and easier to start new companies. Another point would be that we have to start thinking and to start accept the failures. Entrepreneurs are risk takers, and they emerge more readily in cultures where risk taking is encouraged. And we have to consider entrepreneurs and starting a business as a viable career path. New technologies grow up better in these environments where risk-taking is in place. And the last point is the easy access to capital. We really have to think carefully about the balance between driving growth and taxing capital. And at this point, my speech would be done.
Thank you very much. So perhaps before turning it over to the audience, maybe I can address a question to all of our panelists. Something I touched upon at the beginning. This week, the buzzword is going to be investment. Jean-Claude Juncker will be unveiling his big package, his investment package in Strasbourg on Wednesday morning. We expect the digital agenda to play a big part in that, although I'm not sure we'll necessarily get details on where that money will go this week. I think that may come later. But I wonder if I could ask our panelists, when we're thinking about creating better telecoms infrastructure across Europe, and in particular if we're thinking about how we can unlock sources of private money, to what uses should we be putting these sorts of investments? I don't know who wants to.
Well, I would like to underline once again that from our perspective, the best invested money is in the investment into digital technology and the app economy, because we think that a lot of young people are actually working there as self-employed or building startups. So whatever, and it's hard for them to find investment because it's quite a risky business to get private money coming in. So if the new investments from the side of the European Union could go into that fields, we would very much appreciate it.
Yes, as I've already said, I think that investments should go to infrastructure because infrastructure is what companies can build their services on. So if there's no infrastructure, it's very hard to create anything on this. I had a meeting last week with the creator of the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, and he explained it very openly and clearly that they created the World Wide Web as an open protocol so that others can build on it. So I think this is very important because if we have discussions in the European Parliament, the data protection issues, the copyright issues, of course they are important, but at the same time they shouldn't hinder the process as such. So if it is open, everybody can access the investments. We have a Connecting Europe facility for such purposes. So this should be should be used for making investments in the infrastructure so that companies can build on that and create jobs.
Alicia?
I would say that yes, we really need investments, especially in broadband. Europe is not as well connected as the US. And of course, the broadband is the basis. It's like the high-speed routes, highways that we had in the previous century. So yes, of course, and urgently investments. Thank you.
Okay, turning it over to the audience. Any questions? Over here.
I think reference was just made by the MEP from Estonia to copyright. In Britain, we have a huge creative industry which contributes an enormous amount to our economy. But there are real concerns that...
You have a microphone.
Thank you. There are real concerns that a free digital market will mean for creative artists, writers, and other creators of content huge difficulty. How can we marry the desire for an open internet and open digital world with protecting creative artists?
Thank you. That's a very good question, and that's what the discussions are all about, actually. How to find that balance, because on one hand, if you have created something, you want to protect that, but on the other hand, this overprotection might lead to no innovation. So if it is not open, the others can't use. So where to find the balance? I would say that compared to the US system and the European system, then the European system is rather protective of the creation, more to the copyright, stronger copyright than the US system. So. But if we look in terms of innovation and progress, then the US is definitely ahead. So one thing also what has been said is that the world is moving very fast. So, for example, if we talk about that we should create Europe's Google, so Google is yesterday's news. Actually, no need to protect that anymore because there are new services that are coming. So if you have something already created, then if somebody copies it, it's a milder version of it. But yeah, to find the balance is a key question, and I don't have a clear answer for that because it's a matter of discussions. But
okay, next question. Over here. If you could wait for the mic.
Yeah, Hugh Annan from the UK, but also based in Brussels. We hear a lot about regulatory barriers and red tape and so on. A lot of the barriers to the digital single market are actually in the private sector. One big example is Apple's iTunes, where in order to buy from the store relating to a particular country, you have to not only have an address in that country, but also have a credit card issued by a bank in that country, which is a nonsense. How, without creating extra red tape, how can private enterprise be encouraged to get rid of some of those barriers, which seem to me completely artificial and unnecessary?
Yes, thank you. So we had this discussion. I'm also in the Internal Affairs Committee. So we had the big report on this and discussion on it. So there's a lot of it in Europe. So it's not that we are neutral in internet, but actually one is better than the other. And I just bring this example. We are a European Union of 28 member states, which all should be equal. The citizens should be equal. In fact, it is not so. So I brought an example there that I wanted to buy a ticket of Eurostar from Brussels to London, and I couldn't do it because I didn't have a Belgian phone number, so they didn't sell it to me. And what was funny about it, when I had this question also that to me it's sort of also from the company side a bit stupid because they can't get their money. I want to bring my money to travel from Brussels to London, and they won't sell it to me. But the reflection I got from the Commission was that, oh, but you're from Estonia. I understand Bulgaria and Romania. They are not selling to them, but you're from Estonia. But they are also European Union members. So it shouldn't be a difference there, but it is. So the thing is how to make it for the companies to understand that it's their money, it's their turnover that is lying there. But of course, it's a question of security. So why they are fearing this, why they are not selling. But it's a big theme of net neutrality. So we are dealing on this.
Okay. Alicia.
I would like to add something. There is something that we have to make distinction. In the private sector, it's very important to make business in a lean way. So sometimes private sectors, they have their own barriers because they didn't have the time perhaps to think in a lean process, right? And this is one thing that they have to solve. This is their homework. And the other point is we have to remove these regulatory barriers. We have 28 different telecom laws in Europe. So imagine, if there is a company that is coming out from Europe, it's completely crazy to understand why in Portugal, in Spain, in France, in UK, in Brussels, in Belgium, why do they have this different telecom situation? At the end, we all have the same needs. Thank you.
Next question. In the back.
Yes, I'm from the UK, and I'd like to ask how you deal with the problem of unfair competition created by digital monopolies like Amazon, who are able to unfairly compete with pretty well every other bookseller in Europe because they don't pay taxes, and we're in danger of losing all our booksellers because of it. There are other monopolies that are being created online, and Google is obviously one in the search engine field.
Who wants to take that one? It wasn't directed towards you. Well, of course. No, go ahead.
You want to answer that one?
Well, I was just going to say that it's interesting to have a question like that just after we have had a proposal from the European Parliament or elements within the European Parliament to break up Google, or at least the search component of its business. And my understanding is that proposal has a reasonable chance of being passed by the Parliament, but perhaps someone who's actually in the Parliament can tell us a little bit more.
Yes, thank you. Now I'm talking as a competition lawyer. I used to be, before entering into politics, I was a competition lawyer for 14 years, so I know the field very well. So one thing that must be kept in mind is that unfair competition is, of course, a different story, meaning that it's a different definition. But if we talk about monopolies and how they use their market power, then there are clear rules what they can and cannot do in order to compete on a fair basis. It must be understood that having a monopoly or a dominant position on the market is not illegal in itself, but it's illegal to abuse that position. So, for example, if Google or Amazon have a dominant position either in a search engine or system or this selling on online, then of course should be looked into whether they are abusing their position or not. The one thing, the question about unbundling Google, it comes down to whether a search engine could be considered as infrastructure, because usually the unbundling cases are so that you should unbundle things where you have infrastructure that the others can use to provide their services. So in rail we have unbundling, in energy we have unbundling. So you can't have the network and the production in the same company. Can a search engine be infrastructure that others need in order to provide their services? It's a matter of discussion and a market definition, of course. But this issue that, for example, Amazon is taking away the sales of book stores. This is really true, but at the same time, I would come back to the beginning of my speech. We need creative destruction. We need to allow this creative destruction. It means that something is put out of work in order to something new come in place. So if people are actually buying the books online, then it's just a thing that you can't fight, that you can't say that please go to the stores. Of course you can do that, but if it is more convenient for them to provide the services to buy the books online, they will just do it. So
because they're not paying.
Yeah, that's absolutely a different issue. That's a tax issue that we are talking under this LuxLeaks thing. Is that the big companies should not have tax exemption, so they should have equal conditions as all the others. So I will again, this is not the digital thing, but I will give you one example from Estonia again. We have a very simple tax system. We have no exemptions, which means that actually tax consultants do not have work in Estonia. But it also means if you have a complicated system, then who will benefit from this is the big companies, because they have the money, the resources to hire tax consultants who will optimize the taxes. So this is a completely different issue that should be tackled on the tax harmonization level. And I'm not talking about harmonizing the tax rates, but I'm talking about harmonizing the systems, the definitions, that everybody will be on the same page as we understand. Thank you.
Okay. Vitrana, do you want to add anything to this on this stage? Okay. Another question here in the front, please.
Thank you. My name's Ruth Coleman-Taylor. I'm from the UK. I think this is, on the one hand, a very exciting agenda, and on the other hand, a very excluding agenda, because I'm thinking about many of the people I meet in my area when I'm working politically. People of an older generation, even older than me, and they've not grown up with this technology. They are not working, and they're on quite a limited income, so they find it difficult to afford these expensive toys. And if they do get them, it's a whole new learning experience. You know, I mean, when you get beyond 60, your eyes don't work as well, and you can't see small, shiny screens. Your fingers may become harder to manipulate, so moving around the screen is not easy. And I do know quite a number of people who have tried to use the modern technologies and just find it completely off-putting, and yet so much information, even about your local community, is only now available through new technology. What are we going to do about the people who grew up with a different world, a different technology, but are going to be around for a long time and still have needs? How are we going to meet their needs?
Well, yeah, it is a fact that the youth is more, the younger generations are, like they are born into this digital world, and it's easier for them to learn and accept the rules of this technology life that we are leading. But I actually believe that the whole market is actually also adapting to where there are consumers in need. So the whole digital technology and app economy is developing also to address the needs of the older generations and to have the age-appropriate technology. And I know from my experiences with my grandparents, we have tried to like teach them into it because they were interested. They saw it on television. They saw that there is like the whole world that they don't understand, but they want to get to know it and they want to learn. So we bought them the mobile phones, the computers that are like accessible for them and understandable for them. And it's like these mobile phones for older people. So I think with the development of the whole digital world, it will develop for all generations, not only for the young ones.
Yes, one thing is, of course, it's the older people also have younger family members. For example, I bring this e-prescription thing that we have in Estonia. It's actually in favor of the older people because they can't go to the pharmacy if they are sick, but their children can to pick up their medication. So it is actually working very well and in favor of the older people rather than the young ones who are not ill that much. But I'm just we have in Estonia dealt with this issue also so that the older people have free training on internet, on using computers. This training is organized, so it can be used in Estonia for getting this. But I don't remember the numbers, but the numbers are quite high also for the elderly people in Estonia using the internet. So of course this is it's more difficult, but at the same time it was also difficult for older people at that time when the cars came or all the systems changed. For example, if you have bank cards, also it was very difficult in the beginning for elderly people to use the bank cards, but now they are paying with the cards, so they get to get used to it. So this is it's not a very clear answer, but one thing is that we should help them to cope with this because the life is there, and as you said, that the information on the local municipality activities on internet. So rather than to fight this, is to find the means to help them to cope with this.
I would like to add something very quickly. I will have to say that technology is evolving, so the interfaces are more and more easy to use at the end. Regarding the price, you know, I'm from Spain. In Spain, you know, it's the market where the smartphones are the highest penetration. So, and we are not especially a very rich country. and everyone has a smartphone. So I think it's not a matter of price. It's the attire that you have for new things and new gadgets. And I have to say you that also we cannot make regulations or we cannot exclude as well the digital natives that are coming behind us. And I think the average age of Europe is 40 years old. So we have, a lot of people that is already digital native. So I think that it's a wave that is going to be imposed more and more.
Digital world is wonderful because I just received the numbers for elderly people on using internet services in Estonia. So in ages 65 to 74, there is 31% of people are using the internet, and ages 55 to 64 is over 63%. So it's quite high percentage.
It's like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You need an answer, you can just phone a friend up on the panel. Do you have any questions from anybody who isn't British? In the back here.
Thank you. I'm Dayan, I'm coming from Slovenia. We are all discussing how good things are, digital market, common digital market, open internet. But what about security? You have other aspects. You were saying that in Estonia was one of the first countries who had a cyber attack a few years ago. And we know that the member states of EU, who are also the member states of NATO, cannot agree what is a cyber attack. Because by the definition of law, you know what is an attack and what is the outcome. And I know that NATO is preparing the strategical papers, how to protect the documents, how to protect the countries, especially the member states. But what does the EU do on that question? Are we just talking that we're going to put everything on the internet, but we're not going to discuss or think how we will secure the most important documents? Because I know, because I work in the Ministry of Defense, that a lot of documents who are highly classified, they are never written in computer, and they are never sent by email or by internet. They are always carried, like in the old-fashioned times, by a person who is traveling from Brussels to Ljubljana or to Tallinn or around the globe. I think that we are using our phones, cell phones, smartphones, tablets, computers. We are putting everything on Facebook, but we are probably going to be threatened that someone is going to store our identity, which is happening a lot around Europe and is happening a lot around the globe. And also that someone is going to steal the important information about our common security in EU or in NATO. And that is, as we see, happening. And it did happen when the Ukrainian crisis brought out, when Russians published the highly classified talks between the High Representative and the leaders of the Baltic states. I think that we should be open, but first we have to secure our citizens and also to secure them, not just to put everything on Facebook or on Twitter or on internet. I think that we had to have a balance, and that EU should also make a step further on that question.
Thank you. I mean, I think there are 2 points there, aren't there? There is the question of the safeguarding of matters that have traditionally been state secrets, particularly in the security domain. And then there's the information that we as individuals or we as consumers are placing on the internet. And perhaps the contours of the responsibility are not the same in each case. So I don't know if anybody wants to take that up.
Yeah, as you pointed out very clearly, the biggest risk is the person. So if we talk about securing everything, then at the same time people are voluntarily putting things up on Facebook that, oh, I'm not home and my address is there. So one is to educate people how to use actually and to see the threats on online also. But regarding the security issues, then what I see in the parliament, then the focus is there. The focus is securing everything. The focus is there, but it should not be an obstacle. What we see it in Estonia, the thing is that person is owner of his or her own data. So the data belongs to this person, and how this data can be protected. But all things online, of course, there should be regulations, and there are discussions how strict or lenient those regulations can be. But this topic is definitely not overlooked. I would even say that again, what I mentioned before, people see it as a threat rather than the opportunity. So to overcome this fear is the most important thing, and to educate people, but of course regulate in a sense that when the things are on internet, they couldn't be escaping there. But as I mentioned also, you can also steal files from on paper. So no security there as well.
Well, I would also like to point out that we mentioned that safety and security on the internet should be like among 3 top priorities in the development of the digital world, because the people are getting more and more relaxed on the internet, and they still don't have this connection between real life and digital life, that you have to be safe enough in both worlds. So I think that it should definitely be something to develop further. First, safety of our citizens' data, and generally their security and trustworthiness online. And the second aspect is our national security. So inside of the security and defense policy, where it's not only physical threats or threats to our societies, but also threats in the digital world, and internet threats that we are getting, as in the case of Estonia. Yeah.
I just want to add that we want an open, safe, secure, and free cyberspace, right? And there is an initiative in the digital agenda with 14 actions to make sure that the cybersecurity is provided to all Europeans. And especially, there is one initiative very nice, which is called the Better Internet for Kids and Children, which is a very vulnerable people, okay, to get to a safe internet. So it's a work that it has been already started in the previous.
Next question. Here, please. Okay, sorry, just wait for the mic.
From France, individual member. My question is about children. We speak now about the single market, but in education we have 28 different educational systems, and these skills, these digital competencies and financial, because we have been also mentioning investment, and young people have to understand at an early age what is investment. And it's a quite different situation in our 28 countries. How do you think we could help to change this situation? Because it's a big inequity.
Well, you are absolutely right that our children and our kids really have to get these digital skills. But I have nephews very young, and I am amazed every time that I see them playing with, what's the name of these, iPads and all these gadgets, tools, and they come so familiar so quickly. And the point is that, because as I said before, interfaces are very used and very understandable and very easy to use. And regarding the 28 different systems education, this is something that is broader than the digital education. I guess, and I think, and I'm sure, that every country has already in their education system the digital education already included. And at the end, the skills are very similar. It's not something that we have to reinvent everything, right? It's, we have to think, we have to learn, we have to study, we have to work hard. And this is something that we knew from the past. We knew from the from our analogic life. So at the end, it's extrapolate our education to the digital life, which is the same life, but it has another support, technical support. This is my opinion, of course.
Well, we believe for certain that education and the insertion of knowledge about digital technology and digital world should be implemented in all of the educational systems in the European Union. Actually, there was also an initiative of Neelie Kroes to insert it into curriculums, and she was writing to all ministers of education of all member states. So I think from the perspective of LIMEC, we definitely encourage the member states to standardize this and put the digital knowledge and the knowledge about technology into the curricula from the very beginnings.
I just have a question on this issue of education. Educational bureaucracies are not traditionally renowned for keeping pace with every last change in the modern world. So if we have collectively decided that it is essential to include an element of digital adroitness in our educational curricula, do we trust the bureaucracies who are putting together those curricula to be able to identify precisely the skills that kids will need in the future?
Well, if I may add, the curriculums are usually created by experts. So I believe that we have enough of expertise to know which knowledge and which expertise and skills the younger generation will need to be able to come into the digital world fully prepared. Because nowadays, like when you're talking to all of the startups and the youngsters that are actually building all of these new technologies and applications, when I ask them, like, where did you learn this? Actually, they are like self-educated mostly. They started doing it at home as a hobby. They developed it, and actually, this knowledge is usually then preserved only in this internet society and this digital world, that it should be actually transposed into the educational systems as well and into the real world.
Yes, first on this 28 different systems. Well, European Union, as we have a union of different states, then the European Union doesn't have competence on education issues. So and as far as I see it, I'm not in the committee of dealing with these issues, so I'm not an expert on this. But as far as I see it is that every country sees that their system is the best one, so don't want to take anything from the others. European Union as such is not dealing with this, but there's a good question whether some countries are a good example for the others, and then they just take it over. For example, we have a very good mutual cooperation or maybe a competition also with Finland, because we take best parts of their system and put it into our system. And regarding this digital skills, then I agree with Tom here that it might be yesterday's news that the children are taught at school, but what we have had in Estonia in some schools, not all, but it's in the program that the children are taught programming in elementary school, because it's very playful, and they learn to program to make programs already in elementary school. And the other thing is, when they go to school, then some schools have instead of mathematics, they have chess. So you start to play chess, because it develops your analytical skills, because everybody knows how to calculate within 10. So these are the skills that are universal and independent of whether we have digital tools or other tools that we use. But yeah, having a unified system, this relates very much to question whether we should have a federal Europe or not. So that's a very wide question. So
Yes. Yes, I think we might skip that one for now. Over here.
I'm a councillor in an area which has a large town and a rural hinterland. And in the rural areas, they have very poor internet access. The world that the panel are describing it's a wonderful world for the people in the town who have super fast broadband. But I'm worried that there's a risk of elitism here. This is great for the educated and for the urban and for the people with money. It's not just the elderly who have physical difficulties learning what's new. It's actually a lot of rural people and a lot of poor people who they are the left behind. And in my country, in England, we have a lot of angry people who are voting for populist and nationalist party because they feel left behind. I just wondered if the panel would like to comment.
Well, actually, that is the first key priority that I think all of the panelists mentioned here, is that we should have access to internet all over Europe. I mentioned at the beginning that 100 million of Europeans have never accessed the internet yet, and the key priority should be actually the investment in the infrastructure and make Europe completely connected through the broadband technology. So, yeah, maybe others would like to comment on that as well.
I would like to add that I fully agree with you. I mean, rural areas in Europe they really have, and they really need to have broadband being deployed and as quick as possible. It's true that private companies doesn't have really the incentive to go there, because it's normal the population doesn't have the same density. So it's normal that they don't have the same interest that going for a big city. So here, I'm not very much, I don't like very much state aids, and I don't like very much subsidiaries, but I think that really this is a point where the government should speak with private companies and start working on private and public solutions and investments, because it's true that the people that is living there, you cannot exclude them from the digital life and of the growth. And it's also very important because in rural areas, it's also very good to start to deploy new businesses of SMEs. So they have the chance to compete globally if you provide them the tools to work there. And one point that I want to say as well is that if we Europeans would be smarter, we should remove all these regulatory barriers, and investment could flow in an easy way to Europe. And for a private company, you know, it would be cheaper to go to rural areas. I think that this is really a consequence. To remove the barriers really helps that this money that is, let's say, invest, in these different regulatory systems that there are in every country. If it's invest really, and it's really being used in creating the broadband, so something that is material, and to get, with different telecoms companies to have like an agreement to go together and to divide the rural areas, I think that could be much more interesting, and the penetration of broadband would be higher. I fully agree with you, and I think that it's something that it really worries the governments that it's already Europe in Spain for sure, and in UK I think that as well, because I think that you have a broadband national plan, if I'm not wrong.
Well, Vidrana suggested at the beginning of this session that we should scrap the common agricultural policy. Perhaps we could divert some of those funds away from farmers who are farming and pay farmers to get on the internet instead. That would be one idea. Okay. Any more questions? Over here. We got a mic.
It's Magdalena Comas from AT&T, working for Karim Lezina, who was supposed to talk in this panel. And I have a question for Alice and Richard. As we both are Spanish, and we know that unemployment now is 23%, it's very high, and also taking care that the digital single market is going to create a lot of jobs in Europe. How are the steps going on in Spain regarding the digital single market? What's being invested? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Well, as you know, Spain is built in 17 small regions, and every small region has his own regulatory system. So imagine, no? So what we did is, first of all, we start creating. I was working previously in the cabinet of the Minister of Industry. That's why I'm talking in this way, and I know what happened before being a digital champion. So at the beginning, well, we start to make a law that the central government had the right, you know, if you go to a region and you want to invest in broadband, for instance, you don't need to ask any more permission to go to another city. So that means that if you get the administrative permits to invest in one region, you are able to invest in whole Spain. So this is a main step that I think it's working, because things are really improving on the telecom. And also what we did, it's very simple. We took the digital agenda, the one that was built by Nelly Cruz, and what we did was a translation from the priorities that were marked in this agenda, and we built the Spanish digital agenda, which is a copy. But like this is like a roadmap, and it's a path to complete all the actions and to get to the objectives of Europe 2020. And this is what now all this agenda is being put in place and implementing, and I think that results are very good.
Thank you. I think we've got time for a couple more questions in the back.
Hi there. We've been focusing on digitalization within Europe, safety and regulation, but my question is about the wider international arena. Standards around the world are not the same, and the internet has no borders. How should we protect our industry and ensure their safety and halt malicious, unfair competition elsewhere? It's true the US has one of the biggest digital industries, but then again, there have been instances when Chinese-sponsored, state-sponsored organizations have led cyber attacks on US private industry to steal valuable data, which is unfair. I mean, you know, people have invested millions of pounds into this research, but it can be stolen in an instant. You know, you can hide pieces of paper in a bunker within a fortress behind a vault, and it won't be accessible. But the internet, no matter how good your security is, someone will be able to access it. And as long as international standards are not similar, there will be unfair competition. So how do we seek to protect our industry in Europe from this?
Okay.
Well, I think that I have a generic answer for you, and I say that it's the competition who is going to deal and who is going to decide which are the standard and the standard that you are going to use.
Well, the question is again related to how do we protect our companies from? So this is like, we see it as a threat again. So it's not an opportunity, it's a threat. How can we protect our companies against US companies? Rather than how can we use the opportunities that the internet provides so that the companies can compete better with the US companies or be better than US companies. But the question of security, again, we have the Cybersecurity Center in Estonia dealing with the cybersecurity issues. So I'm not the specialist on that, how they do it, what are the tools for doing this. But this is developing as well as all the other services. So of course there's a question whether it is a step behind than the attackers and everything, or a step in front. No, probably a step behind. And let's hope that nothing really big happens. But at the same time, we can't keep the papers in the vault if the people are on internet, if they put their information there. So we can't use the, I don't know, caves for storing things. So either you cope with the situation that we are actually in and try to find solutions for that, or you try to maintain your previous life. So.
If I may just add, I think that the whole market of developing protection on the internet is growing faster than actually the hacking, because we just hear from time to time that there were some security threats, but we never actually advocate how many of those threats were met with right protection. For instance, I work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we know that there are constant threats, but we are facing all of them, and we are securing all of our data and all of our infrastructure well enough to be protected from any intrusions and hacks. So I think the market is developing rapidly, and as everyone pointed out, that the security is actually one of the key priorities online.
Okay, another question over here.
My name is Iris, I'm from Estonia. I work for European Parliament as a policy advisor for the Liberal Group. And, you know, in my head, this digital technology and the digital world, it is very liberal in its core, you know, because it gives freedom. Freedom is the core message of liberals. So then I read this leaflet, you know, puts the question, what challenges are liberals up against in making this vision a reality? So actually I have this question to the panelists. We are talking here about whether we are we in a digital world today or not? Yes, we are. This is not even a question. So I think we have to move further with this question, because we are here in a European Liberal Forum, in European Liberal Democrat Party Congress, and we would actually like to hear what are those challenges and what are those means to tackle those challenges. I mean, we heard several times that Kaja and all the rest of the panelists were pointing out that actually the main challenge, what we are facing, is actually fear against the internet and fear against the development. And then more concretely, maybe, you know, there's this challenges that we are tackling for the education, where it all starts and so on. So I would like to put this very concrete question for the, what do you see is the challenge, not the tool how to tackle, but it's really the core challenge for the liberals. Thank you.
I think that's an excellent question. I'd just like to add to it, because I think sometimes discussions like these have the politics leached out of them slightly, but they are intensely political questions that we're dealing with here. And I think if we look at some of the challenges that some countries in the Eurozone have been through in recent years, the difficulties that have been faced in a country like Greece, breaking up fairly small closed shops, particular industries, these are things that can bring thousands or tens of thousands of people onto the streets. The kind of disruptions or the potential disruptions that we're talking about up here are far, far more extensive than anything that any troika has tried to impose on a country in the Eurozone. So at some point, I think when we're thinking about the potential effects, the potential disruptions of some of these changes, we are going to have to confront some of the political challenges that they imply. So I'd be very interested to hear from our panelists about how that political battle can be won. Who wants to start?
I can start. As I've mentioned several times, it is the fear. So, but at the same time, I would like to quote Roosevelt, who said that the only thing that we have to fear is fear itself. So, fear of the internet, and actually fear of the creative destruction, and politically, yes, it is very difficult if you see that due to this people are put out of work. So how to just serve this issue? But the thing is, I think the answer was already in your question. The thing is to actually educate people, to just show them the possibilities that the new life could bring instead of the fear of losing the old thing. So not to keep this that we are still riding the horses, let them drive the cars, but we are still riding the horses. So eventually it just doesn't work. But again, if you look at, for example, in the European Parliament, there's a big majority of people who are not from the digital age, meaning that they are older. And they see it very much as a threat. So one thing is to explain, to show them actually the positive examples that we have and how it actually benefits the people and how we can use that. So to take down the fear, to open up this. But again, there was. Coming to this first example that I brought from the 1583, how many years were to Industrial Revolution? So it was a long time. But when it happened, it actually benefited people because the jobs were created elsewhere. So and the country UK is due to the Industrial Revolution in so much better position than it was before that compared to the other countries in Europe. So.
John? Keep it brief.
Yeah. Well, I think we all here agree that digital agenda is actually a liberal agenda. It was promoted by the liberal commissioners in previous mandate. It is now also a portfolio of a liberal commissioner. We see it, we liberals see it as a priority. We see it as a potential for growth and development. And the concrete policies that we are pursuing is actually this access to internet as a basic right for all of our citizens, wherever they are, in the rural areas, in urban areas. We see it as something that needs to be addressed on the European level as well as in the member states. We are pursuing the education for the digital technologies as a key priority when educating our younger generations. And investments in new technologies to see that it is a risk, but it is a risk we're taking. Yeah, thank you.
Very briefly, the liberal recipes would be remove obstacles, tackle fragmentation, align technical standards and interoperability, simplify heavy bureaucracy, and easy access to capital. This is, for me, the recipes.
Okay. There you go, easy. I think that's probably all the time we have for questions, I'm afraid. So if I could get each of our panelists to provide any concluding thoughts, and if I could ask you to keep it to 2 or 3 minutes, that would be great. Thank you. Yes, we'll start on the left with Vajrana.
Well, I can only repeat, actually, I think the good wrap-up of the whole panel was the last question. Like, we need to grasp that digital agenda is a liberal agenda. We should all stand behind it and pursue it further, because the challenges are there, but we have the solutions how to address them. Just keep continuing where Neelie Kroes started. Anything beyond that is not acceptable. Thank you.
Well, it's very difficult to say anything that I haven't said already regarding this. So I just say that that the main thing is to. Actually, what also this panel and the questions showed, the main thing is to work with people, to show the opportunities and actually also help those who are lacking behind, to see it as an opportunity rather as a threat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my final closing is that it's time for action for a true digital single market. Inaction will put Europe's economy at risk, and past success won't ensure Europe's future. So we have the right ingredients to succeed, and I really think that the European Commission have a very important opportunity to introduce effective reform, to let Europe play a leading role in the global digital economy and be a better place to work and live. Thank you.
Okay, I think that just about wraps it up. So thank you to our panelists and thank you to everyone for coming this afternoon. So quick at the end. I think we finished early. Thank you, Stephanie. Do you have to do this very much at the last minute? Do you have to do this at the last minute?
Yeah.